Hello and welcome to another week's analysis behind the news. While everyone was looking to Cleveland, it was Massachusetts that made the news. Massachusetts Attorney General Maura Healey announced that her office was stepping up enforcement of the state's assault weapons ban, including a crackdown on the sale of copycat weapons. The law she is enforcing is a 1998 assault weapons ban law, passed by the state that mirrored the federal 1994 law, which expired in 2004, and according to an op-ed article she wrote for the Boston Press, which gun dealers saw even before receiving notice from her office, the Attorney General offers an emotional argument for gun control and then suggests that she is closing the loophole for copies or duplicates of the guns outlawed in 1998. She then writes that 10,000 of these weapons, these copycats or duplicates, were sold in Massachusetts alone last year. Yet, it doesn't seem to dawn on her that those 10,000 arms have committed no crimes. In fact, according to FBI crime stats, no rifles of any kind were used to murder anyone in that state. So, the Attorney General decides that it is her office that is going to determine which weapons are prohibited. Yet, isn't that a job for the state legislature? Do they not create the laws for the state and the Attorney General is supposed to enforce them? Perhaps she and other members of the legislative body, well, obviously she's not part of the legislative body, but her and members of the legislative body need to listen to another resident of Massachusetts who in 1775 had a skirmish with British soldiers sent to confiscate arms and munitions of those in Concord. History reports it as the shot heard around the world as the start to this country's war for independence. Captain John Parker reportedly told his Lexington company of the Massachusetts militia to stand your ground. Don't fire unless fired upon, but if they mean to have a war, let it begin here. And now Massachusetts has some of the strictest gun laws in the country. It's astonishing to see how far away from the principles of liberty we have moved. But now back to Cleveland and the GOP convention. USA Today carried photos, or at least one photo, of protesters carrying signs promoting the Revolutionary Communist Party. These are the hardcore leftists that show up who usually foment violence, hoping to get a reaction out of police that they can use to justify getting even more bureaucracy over the police. This usually results in a civilians review board that stymies the police work. Crime then goes up, and at some point, federal intervention is either welcomed or demanded. That federal intervention is unconstitutional and shifts the lines of allegiance from local to federal, moving us closer to a police state. Inside the convention, it seemed that none of the drama that was predicted ever came about. Trump's acceptance speech once again included Americanism as he pledged to fight globalism. How and to what extent remained to be seen. Plenty of neoconservatives were on hand to give foreign policy speeches, essentially pumping up the war machine and suggesting that America go out and fight our enemies. What they don't mention is that those enemies are a reaction to our action. Because of that reaction, the war wing of the Republican Party uses it to have an unending war that not only siphons off American blood and treasure, but also uses terrorism as an excuse to curtail and cancel American liberties. So the motivations of the warmongering Republicans are not unlike the communists we mentioned before that use the reaction as an excuse for more and more government. VP nominee Mike Pence seems to be raising plenty of questions among constitutionalists. Many are asking if he is the globalist insider that will guide Trump into pushing for a neocon foreign policy. Since Pence served about 6 terms in the House, we get an indication of his record and where he might be heading. According to the New Americans Freedom Index, he scored about a 62%. This is cumulative over all of his terms, which ranged from a 42% to 86%. Now take a look at the votes that he missed to get an idea of his influences. Just visit thenewamerican.com and click on Freedom Index. Another speaker at the convention was the founder of PayPal, who is an openly homosexual Republican. Interestingly, When he announced this fact, the crowd gave him a standing ovation. One would have thought that he was speaking at the Democratic National Convention. But then again, the differences between the two parties become less and less as time goes on, as special interests take over, and as society is pushed farther away from God, family, and morality. Should we not hold ourselves to a higher degree of morality? Founding Father John Adams is quoted as saying, "Our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the government of any other." Well, maybe that's why the Constitution is so widely ignored and abused. It seems we should follow his advice lest we lose the very fabric upon which this country was created. So until next week, we'll see you then.